Now, fortunately, the regulations went down quite a bit, and they actually brought it down to like 25 regulations instead of like dozens and dozens of data points. They said like, okay, these are the 25 things you have to meet. And now, it looks like a lot of stuff, right? 25 things you have to meet, but they have stuff in there like you have to ask the patient, do you smoke? You have to take their blood pressure. You have to take their height and weight and calculate the BMI. And it's like, really? Those are going to be like 25 things? That should be pretty easy. You know what I mean? So there are some interesting things in there, but for the most part, about, I'd say, 15 to 16 of those 25 things are fairly basic. Stuff you'd normally do anyway. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff in there that kind of boiled down to like fairly simple stuff. There is some stuff in there that's kind of advanced if you're going to touch upon. But basically, just to go back a little bit, this whole mess started with this ARA Act. I think it's called the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. Okay, and this was back in 2009. So that's when this started. So until then, there wasn't much of a push for this whole electronic, transactions and all that stuff. They were kind of working towards this with the whole billing, and I'm sure you guys remember this, when they went to like, you have to submit all the bills electronically, the 837. And I'm sure most of you remember the pain and the anguish. Now, they'd have to pry electronic billings and electronic revenue advices from your dead cold hands. Because you're like, no, it's mine. All right, so that's how it starts. I mean, it's kind of like the cell phone. Once you get used to it, it's like, I'm not letting it go. I remember the first time I saw a cell phone, I stayed, so I'm like, who the heck would want to make a call from the car? This huge thing. That's how it works, I guess. But anyway, so the primary goals basically were to, looking at it from a doctor's perspective, because when you're looking at this whole meaningful use, it's kind of like purely from the doctor's perspective for the most part. So, they wanted to kind of push everybody towards the whole electronic medium. So instead of, doing everything on paper, they wanted to do electronic. So, for example, a few years ago, there was a Vioxx reform. And, if you have a paper charting system and you say, like, oh, darn, now I got to tell everybody, don't take Vioxx. Who would I give Vioxx to the last year? I don't know. Let's pull those 2,000 charts and look through that. It's incredibly painful. Whereas with an electronic medical system, of course, you can just run a report and you get the data and you can meet those things. Okay. Now what they did is the first time the rules came out, there wasn't much talk about incentives. But then they realized, wait a second, we're going to have to do something here. So they put the carrot on the stick. So the incentives are kicking in this year, starting in 2011. And then the stick, I guess, the disincentives start in 2015. What the approach is like they're trying to get all the doctors, the ambulatory providers first, onto electronic, and then they're going to keep widening the net, so to speak, to get more and more people to exchange electronic transactions. There are a lot of standards put into place this year, which personally I have to say they're pretty good. Usually I'm not a big fan of government, but they actually got some of it right, which is amazing, personally. But anyway, so we'll talk about those two in a little bit, but that's where we're headed. So stage one is this year, and basically you're looking at like capturing and sharing data. Stage 2 is going to kick in 2013, and stage 3 is in 2015. Okay, and the stage 2, they're talking about exchange of clinical data, but then they're expecting you to already be exchanging. Okay, you should have achieved this milestone by then. And stage 3 is 2015, when they're saying you have to prove improved outcomes. She was talking about HEDIS measures. Very similar measures are built into this meaningful use standards. There's about 30-something, and of which you have to do 6. Okay, and optionally do 3 more. So, it's not a lot of stuff. Like, for example, what percentage of patients did you calculate BMI on? I mean, you're not going to sit there and like add, okay, 1, 2, 3. You want the system to do that, right? So stuff like that. These are the kind of reports. Now, the interesting thing is, nobody's ready for this yet. So they looked around and said, like, you know what? 2011. If we say you have to submit this report, man, we actually have to do some work to get these reports. So the government turned and said, like, well, we're going to change it this year. So this year, you're going to do it by attestation. So what does that mean? Basically, you buy a certified EMR, wave the receipt and go like, yeah, I'm doing this. And you get the money. The money, I didn't mention that yet. The incentives for this year, it's pretty cool. I don't know if you guys can flip over to the page where it says like Medicare payment schedule. All right, if you look at this, this is the incentives for achieving meaningful use. Okay, so you're looking at in 2011, it's 18,000. So basically, you have to say, I've been meaningfully using the EMR system. You have to get a certified system. And you have to meaningfully use it, meaning you have to record blood pressure and height and weight, all this stuff, fun stuff, which you're going to do anyway, right? And then all the reports are generated on the back end if and when the government is ready to receive these reports. Amazingly enough, in Florida, we're a little bit ahead. So, for example, if you're talking about primary care docs like family practice or pediatrics, they can submit immunization reports to the state of Florida right now, which is great, which is through Florida shots. Most of the states don't even have that. So we're actually a little bit ahead in where we are with this whole meaningful use thing. Then if you look at this, so that's 18,000 for the first year. And this is going to be the easiest year in which you're going to get an incentive, because starting next year, you're going to have to prove that you're meeting meaningful use, not just wave your hand and say, I'm doing this. Okay, so this is probably the best year you need to get any sort of reimbursement from the government for going through the hassle. Okay, and typically you're looking at, it's going to cost some disruption to your practice, and it's going to cost you some money to put an EMR system in place to do all of that. I mean, believe me, we go through this every day with the EMR system, so we know. But at least this reimburses you for that. So you're not like out of pocket for a lot of money. Then the second, third, and fourth year and all that, as you can see, the incentives decline over time. So the first year is 18,000, second year is 12, then 8, and 4, and 2. So you can see how it's going, and then the disincentives kick in. So if you're not compliant by that point, then you start looking at Medicare cuts. Now this is not just Medicare cuts. I'm sure you know most of the insurance contracts are tied to Medicare rates. So if you're looking at a 5% cut in your Medicare reimbursement, you're looking at a 5% cut across the board. Okay, and in addition, there's a lot of rules changes that we're talking about with like the ACOs and stuff like that. We have no idea where it's going. We do know where this is going right now, because this is at this point law. That is at this point proposal. So we're not exactly sure where the ACO part is going to end up, but we do have a pretty good idea of where this is headed. Okay, and who knows, Republicans might win the election next year, and then all the incentives go away. So might as well try to get the incentives while you can. All right, Medicaid, there's also a payment schedule. Very hard to achieve, because a very high percentage of your practice has to be Medicaid in order for you to get the Medicaid, incentives. So we're not going to talk about that too much.